Alright, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel, guys. Today we have a Spencer Dinwiddie coming home to the Los Angeles Lakers video. Now, the guard Spencer Dinwiddie declined his $12.3 million player option with the Brooklyn Nets, and he will now enter the offseason as an unrestricted free agent. Now, the Los Angeles Lakers, they're definitely in the market for a point guard with Dennis Schroeder asking for $100+ million. But guys, before we get into this video, if you enjoy it, hit the like button, hit that sub button. It is greatly appreciated. Now, while the Lakers don't necessarily have the outright cap space to sign Dinwiddie in free agency, they could definitely find a way to work on a sign and trade. And we're going to go through a couple of options here later in this video. Now, Dinwiddie missed most of this last season with a torn ACL, but he was having a good year. He had a great year the year before that, 2019-2020. And he should be a full go for the 2021-2022 season. And he would make a lot of sense as the Lakers starting point guard if Dennis Schroeder, since his price range is just way too high, he decides to leave. So obviously Dinwiddie's going to want more than his player option at $12.3 million. But it's hard to see him getting a max contract after having such a devastating injury. So if he's just like a little under that $20 million a year range, or if he's even at that $20 million a year range, I think that would be relatively fair. Now, this trade is just a straight up Spencer Dinwiddie for Dennis Schroeder swap. Now, it's a pretty obvious move. Schroeder is looking for a major deal this offseason, and I mean, this guy, there was a game in the playoffs where he scored 0 points. So the Lakers don't seem very comfortable with signing him, especially for that amount of money. So if they're not willing to give him a contract bigger than the 4-year, $84 million offer that he was given earlier on the season, this could be perfect. Now, if the Nets need to match salary in the case that Schroeder is making more than Dinwiddie, you've got Landry Shamet. You also have DeAndre Jordan. Those are some pieces you could throw in the deal. Now, this next option is moving away from Kyle Kuzma. Obviously, the first trade is probably the trade that I think the Lakers would be the most thrilled at. Now, it has been reported that LeBron James and Kyle Kuzma don't necessarily see eye to eye. So I'm not quite sure about Kyle Kuzma's availability on the Lakers next season. If you ask me, I think he's going to be long gone. Now, he's on an extremely friendly contract. He's set to make $13 million next season. So he alone wouldn't complete a deal for Dinwiddie. Now, they could try a Kuzma and KCP package that would help kind of get Brooklyn's bench going, as they really relied on Bruce Brown and Mike James. If Trez opts into his player option, he could be another piece for the Lakers to include as well. But honestly, the whole Trez situation isn't looking good. He has some very strong opinions about being benched. So if you move Kuzma and another player, then you could absorb Dinwiddie's eventual salary, and you could also probably get back a shooter like Landry Shamet as well. Now, they don't have really a ton of options, but they can get creative to get Dinwiddie on the roster. This last sign and trade is for THT. Now, the Lakers are in a very tough spot when it comes to Talen Horton-Tucker, as it's possible for other teams to offer him a major deal, even a max contract deal. And you have all these rumors coming out on like an Eastern Conference executive saying, oh, I'd max up THT. And then you also have someone saying, like, he's nothing but a bench player. So you got to wonder how much of this is the Lakers trying to stir the pot, other teams trying to stir the pot so that the Lakers can't re-sign him and that someone offers him too much money. Who really knows? But the Nets, I mean, they could use an intriguing young piece like THT, and it would help them keep their bench unit intact. Now, for the Lakers, it makes sense to maximize what you can get for THT, as he is an extremely intriguing prospect, but he hasn't really blossomed into a proven piece that can help a team win right now. Now, the financials are where it gets really interesting, but if you can find a way to make it happen, this is a very, very interesting trade, because a lot of it depends on how he does in the open market. But I would say, like, Spencer Dinwiddie for THT is essentially a really solid deal. I mean, people forget Spencer Dinwiddie is a very solid basketball player, and this is really what the Lakers are using. I mean, Dinwiddie's not going to come into a playoff game and score 0 points. I mean, this is a career 13-point per game score. 2019-2020, when he played in 64 games and started in almost 50, he averaged 20.6 points per game and 6.8 assists, 3.5 rebounds. So he can facilitate the ball. He can play make. He can do the whole shebang. I think he's a much better option than Dennis Schroeder. And honestly, it's looking like he's going to be a much cheaper option than Dennis Schroeder. So we'll see what the Lakers decide to do here. But man, personally, if you ask me, it's hard for me to imagine a way where both Dennis Schroeder and Kyle Kuzma both find their way on their team next season. And then you throw in Trez to the mix and it complicates everything. I mean, if I'm the Lakers, I'm honestly trying to retain every single player I can get and then work the sign and trade deals, because losing, I mean, if you lose Schroeder and you lose THT to free agency and you don't make a move, like a sign and trade move, I mean, the options are getting very, very, very limited. I mean, then you really have KCP and Kuzma, so you still have some options, but I mean, you need bench pieces to help your team win. So this Lakers offseason is going to be very interesting. It's also going to be very interesting to see how they decide to draft. Now, that is coming up. That's only that's in like 2 weeks, a little over 2 weeks from now. So we'll see then. But anyways, guys, if you enjoyed this video, hit the like button, hit the sub button, and I'll see you guys tomorrow.